My guest today is Dennis Beaver. Dennis has been practicing law in California for over 40 years, and I have invited him on my show because he's very interesting, and also to discuss work-life balance and the topic of lawyers in general. What the phrase work-life balance means, what advice he has for new lawyers, old lawyers, and other professionals, not just on work-life balance, but perhaps on their life in general or on their careers. So Dennis, thank you for coming on my show.
Pleasure to be with you, Aaron.
So, Dennis, why don't we start with your background, how you became a lawyer, what led you to become a lawyer, and how you got where you are today, practicing law in Bakersfield, and your wife helps you practice law as well, right?
My wife is a paralegal in the office. That's correct. We have two paralegals and she is one.
And so how did you end up there?
How did I end up in Bakersfield? Well, the short story, the Reader's Digest condensed version, I, after law school, was teaching, I went to Loyola and was teaching at Glendale University College of Law, which at that time was an unaccredited law school in California. I mean, you had to take the first year bar exam, the baby bar exam. I taught the courses for students in how to write the bar exam. And as I was a pretty good writer and a very demanding instructor, and I was rigid with them, got the highest bar passing ratio the school had ever had, the students in my class. Well, they had a weekend program. Students from Bakersfield came down to Glendale. So they said, why don't you become a district attorney, deputy DA in Kern County? I said, where's that? Bakersfield. Where's that? 100 miles north. So I came up here. It was 1973. Small Bakersfield was half the size that it is now. It's about 150,000 people. 20-person DA's office. Talked to the boss. He said, when can you begin? You know, no background check, no nothing. If you're warm and breathing, have a bar card, you're hired. There was a great need for lawyers to go into government service. There was a lot of competition for lawyers who would go into some form of government service. Came up here and enjoyed the small town. Started a consumer protection unit in the DA's office. A TV station contacted me and said, would you mind becoming a legal affairs reporter for us? I said, happy to. Sure. So I began doing that 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock news live on the news set. I was not married at that time, obviously. The radio station said, how about doing talk shows for us? So suddenly I'm doing noontime talk shows. Very well known very quickly. So when I opened my own law practice in 1976, I was extremely well known, not a day in the red, instantly busy, and just had a heck of a great time. It was a blast. It was an absolute ball.
And when you started, did you began as a consumer lawyer because that's what you were doing for the DA?
I did. You know, when you're in the DA's office, all you know is criminal defense work. So I'm doing criminal defense work. You get appointed cases. Then I began doing divorce and personal injury. You know, how you get to be where you are and successful at it is often pure serendipity. It's pure chance. While at Loyola, I got a job with a law firm called Massery and David as a law clerk, second year at Loyola. They only hired lawyers from Loyola. And I interviewed with Raymond David, one of the partners. And on the application form, it says foreign languages. I put down French. As I had worked as an interpreter, a translator, I have a degree in French. When I was at Loyola, the CIA offered me a job because of that. I didn't take it, but nice to have been offered the job. So put down French. He said, well, how well do you speak it? Fluently. So, all right, translate this. And he handed me a letter that was in French. His family came from North Africa. And he had a written translation of it. He's testing me. So, you know, sight reading music, I just read off in English what the letter says. He said, you're hired. Like that. Not looking at my grades or any legal brilliance. You're hired because you can speak French. Help me communicate with my family. While there, in the large room that I had a desk at was one of their law clerks who had taken the bar umpteen million times. He had two problems while he's failing the bar. His handwriting was atrocious. Well, saying it was atrocious would be a compliment. And he couldn't spell. But he was a heck of a negotiator. And they gave him PI cases to negotiate with insurance adjusters. Completely illegal, but he was doing it. And I'm listening to this stuff. I learned how you deal with insurance adjusters. So when I am in practice, I began contacting chiropractors. I said, hey, I'll handle your cases. I get cases referred to me. We get them settled promptly for good amounts of money. Everybody's happy, and it went on like that for years. We did divorce for many years until I decided to pull the plug on that. I pulled the plug on that for one of the reasons that I don't like lawyers. I'll tell you. There are some lawyers I do. I like you. You're a fair and just person. But the low reputation that we have in general, we earn.
Well,
if lawyers aren't fighting with each other, we get along great and we're very helpful and good sources of information. But as soon as there's any adversarial relationship and you're fighting over money, we're jerks and do some very bad things and are terribly dishonest. And again, the public's perception of us is accurate, very accurate. So it's worse in family law because often family law specialists, they don't want to help resolve cases. They don't want to help people solve their problems. Not all, obviously. I'm generalizing, but it's a wide number, big figure in terms of percentage in my experience. They want the cases to go on forever and ever and ever. Why? It's because they make more money that way.
And do you feel like this has always been the case? You've been practicing law for 40 some years. Has it gotten worse? Has it always been the case? Is it pretty steady? Is it in all areas of law, family law, personal injury, and criminal?
Yeah, it is certainly worse when you have a concentration of more lawyers than you need. We have a gross oversupply of attorneys in much of California. In some areas, there aren't enough. Typically in rural areas where very few people want to live unless they come from there, you don't have enough. But this town is over-lawyered, so you have the incentive, as you may have fewer clients, to rip them off more. There's no other way of putting it. You find lawsuits that are frivolous lawsuits filed, which shouldn't be filed. You find personal injury cases taken where the person didn't need to hire a lawyer. They could perfectly capable of resolving it with the insurance adjuster themselves, but because there's a percentage fee, meaning the client's going to get less, it's a piddly case, nothing to it. So you have personal injury mills that have developed where they'll take anything that walks in the door, cases they shouldn't take, and render. I've seen some horrible results. The ads you see on TV, we'll fight for you. You sure will. Yep.
I read the other day an article in the Daily Journal. It was written by a judge. I think he was a Stanley Mosk judge. I don't remember his name right now. The article was about the state bar's proposal to lower the passage threshold.
Yeah.
And some of his comments, if I'm remembering correctly, were that we don't need more lawyers. We especially don't need more unqualified lawyers in California.
That's correct.
And so do you feel like a lot of the problems that you are addressing is because of lawyers trying to make money, or out of a lack of competence, and maybe they file, or maybe both, maybe they have a stronger belief in weak cases, so they fight them harder, and as a happy byproduct, maybe they make more money. Or maybe they're not communicating with the client. Certainly sometimes a client will be driving a lawsuit, and a client might not believe good advice that he or she is getting.
I can tell you when I first began practicing law here, there were a fraction of the attorneys and you didn't have much of the same amount of litigation at all. It was a much more cordial relationship between lawyers. Unlike Los Angeles, if someone said, I'll give you an extension, you didn't have to immediately confirm that in writing. It was a much more collegial, sane environment in which to practice law. Law school does not train lawyers. Law school trains you to pass the bar. Law school is woefully inadequate in preparing people to practice law. Out of law school, and you've been there, know the experience, unless you are able to get into a firm that has some kind of a training program, you're incompetent. You don't know what you're doing. You're bloody dangerous. And that's reality. And so you have a much less need for lawyers, so many unemployed, underemployed lawyers who go out and hang up their shingle and will take whatever walks in the door. So lowering the numbers to pass the bar, I think, is a very dumb idea. The state bar sent out inquiries, I think, to every lawyer in the state, an email inquiry, and I replied, bad idea. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you can't do, and can make some pretty bad mistakes.
And the rules of ethics actually require that you only take cases that you can competently handle, or that you can team up with someone.
Unbelievable stuff. They want to make money. So to your earlier question, obviously, any occupation to a large extent is measured in money. There's nothing wrong with making money. You have to. It's important. But it's also important to, particularly in this profession, have some understanding of how important you are in the life of your client, and to understand what the term of fiduciary relationship is, your obligation as a fiduciary. You got to think about the client first, and that means honesty. That means developing good communication skills, and that means if you have a client that is going to go to court and lie, or won't listen to you, pulling the plug if you can, as soon as you can.
Back to your background. You, in the years that you've been practicing law, you have opened a charitable foundation. You have a son who lives in Hong Kong, I believe.
Correct.
You now have a grandchild, right?
As we speak, 19 months of age.
So you almost exemplified the idea of having a good work-life balance. You still pursue journalism. You have an article that is published in the Hanford Sentinel.
I write a syndicated newspaper column. It's carried by a number of newspapers in California. It's called You and the Law, which is carried by papers in Northern California, and their corporate ownership. They are enabled to use it wherever they want to, so it will appear God knows where throughout the country from time to time.
And you've had that article for a number of years, right?
I've written the column for over 30 years.
For over 30 years.
Correct.
And you have a charitable foundation that you've started.
It is called the Dennis and Ann Beaver Foundation. It's an charitable education foundation. And the objective is to encourage the study of foreign language, particularly French, and to work out exchanges. So we send students from local high schools, colleges I attended in Los Angeles, to France. We send students from Hong Kong, university and high school students, to France. We invite law students here from France and Sweden. My two foreign languages are French and Swedish. And they do a 1-month internship in June in criminal law through the DA's office. We made a couple of dollars in personal injury practice. And when you realize that you were grossly overpaid for your social value, if you put in less than 10 hours on a case and wind up making $500,000 on that case, there's something very abnormal about that. you've been grossly overpaid for your social value. If you don't do something with that money, with some of that money, to truly impact other people, then shame on you. Our lifestyle, we live in a normal house, we have 2 nice cars, which we don't trade every year, or nonsense like that. So I would say in the past 25 years approximately that we've run the foundation, we probably sank about, I'm going to estimate, $2 million into it. And people donate money also. And we change lives. We send kids to France who could never afford to go there. They go, and it helps them get into college, helps them get scholarships to college. And they major in French and become French teachers. So I've been blessed in coming to Bakersfield. My wife will tell you, and she's from Hong Kong, by the way, raised our son speaking Cantonese, a language I don't speak. She will tell you Beaver is not that intelligent, and she's right. Bakersfield's been very good to us. Anything I wanted to do, I could do. When I first came here, working in the DA's office, I was offered a chance to teach part-time at Cal State Bakersfield, the university. I taught business and public administration law, a couple of legal-related courses. It was a blast. So if you have talent in small-town America or smaller-town America, you can do all kinds of wonderful things. And we're really blessed with what the foundation does. When I get these incredibly written letters from these students, who many of the ones in Hong Kong who are on scholarship attending private schools there, like Catholic schools. Their parents, often Pakistani and Indians, who are second-class citizens in Hong Kong. Their homes or apartments are so small that the toilet, the room where the toilet is located, is where the shower is. And I'm not making that up. These are people that have no money. And then I say, you're going to France. And people start crying. And, it's absolutely tears of joy. It's a ball. It's a blast. I'm able to do that because of having been successful at law.
And so, you have a very strong perspective that lawyers don't just have an obligation to represent their clients well, and do a good job in the practice of law, but also to almost represent society, represent the legal profession, and represent and be good citizens of the world, and return, not just in money, but also in applying their skills and applying their intelligence to helping other people, to helping society, and to help the world.
Yeah, you're right. With my column, I get readers contacting me all the time with legal problems. I have never once, ever charged a reader for help. I separate journalism from law practice. And I have gone, I've gone to court as a witness on small claims matters for readers. I've gotten, my God, one case, readers bought a metal siding, for their home, 50-year warranty, and 2 years later it starts cracking and falling apart. They were unable to get any warranty service. Couldn't contact anybody except a salesman who would sell them more. I couldn't even find a company headquarters. But I typed in Google the name of the company, and I put down general counsel. Blam! Up it came. This guy was giving a speech to the FCC, or Federal Trade Bureau, FTC. His phone number was there. I called the guy. I said, "Hi, I'm Dennis Beaver, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, and I like a happy ending to my story. Can you help me out?" He said, "I do too. I'll get back to you tomorrow." And he did. He said, "We're going to fix it." 2 days later, my reader calls me. They're tearing off all the siding and redid the whole house. $20,000 job. That was a blast. It wasn't Dennis Beaver who did it. It was the power of the press. It was the fact that I write a column. And when you light a match in a vacant house with cockroaches, they scatter. And that's what journalists do. They light a match. They turn on that flashlight. So I am able, through being a lawyer and a syndicated columnist, to having helped a lot of people. I've gotten folks out of timeshares. You know, one of the greatest horrible ripoffs today are timeshare sales. We have people in their 80s that are locked in a room, literally. They won't let them out until they sign the contract. I've gotten them out of the contracts and refunds. So yes, you make a very fair statement. We have an obligation not just to think about the almighty buck, the billable hour, but to help and to be generous with our help and with our time. You know something? The lawyer who wants to make $1 million off of every client has very few clients. But the lawyer who wants to help get cases settled quickly, get people out of their office and back to their lives, will receive more referrals and make more money than the SOB who's greedy, who just has a dollar sign and hears not the sound of music, but of a cash register ringing when a client walks in the room.